for NASA's boldest test flight in a generation. This crew could be the first humans to journey around the moon in more than half a century.
The Artemis II mission is a test mission of the Orion space capsule.
Artemis II will be the first time we put humans on this rocket.
We're going back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars.
We were always going to the moon.
Pushing ourselves to explore is just core to who we are. That's a part of being a human.
And liftoff.
We shall return. We shall return.
Continuing to test out every bit of Orion.
Coming back to Earth, 7 miles a second.
When humanity sets big goals, we can bring together genius from around the world.
You have the best people on planet Earth putting this vehicle together.
That's what's up.
To innovate for the benefit of humanity and to inspire the world through discovery.
And here we go.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us live from NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where we are beginning a new chapter in America's human spaceflight story. We are so humbled to have thousands of people here in person to witness this, and the many more watching online from around the world. I'm NASA's Megan Cruz, and this is NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers.
Thanks, Megan. What a historic day to be here.
What a historic day to be here. Obviously, for what we see right behind us here, the SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft on launch pad 39B. Artemis II is a nearly 10-day flight test to prove NASA can safely fly astronauts around the moon before attempting to land on it in just 2 years, hopefully.
Yes, like you said, it's a test flight, so we're going to put humans on this rocket for the first time ever, and we're going to test out the systems on board and hopefully get around the moon.
And why does NASA want to return us to the moon?
And we want to go back for scientific discovery, right? We want to create a permanent presence on the lunar surface. We want to be able to harness some of the volatiles or the resources on the moon in order to get us onto Mars later. So we're going to use the moon as a stepping stone to get to Mars, but also we're going to use the moon to learn so much about Earth and about the creation of the solar system. The moon is this untouched witness mark for the Earth and the solar system.
And what I really love is all the things that we do to get us to explore our universe, all of that technology, all the jobs created to support that, it all benefits us here on Earth.
Yes, definitely. I mean, getting this rocket into orbit takes, 8.8 million pounds of thrust, right? And it's the people on Earth who do that and who create that, the engineers, the scientists. There are so many people who make this mission happen.
And so if all goes well, this crew could travel farther from Earth than any other humans before them and see parts of the moon no one has ever laid eyes on. And now, speaking of laying eyes, here we are in the suit-up room with the Artemis II crew.
Yes. Looks like the commander's getting his comm cap on, so the communication cap. Looks like Victor's already got his on and the helmet going.
He's just stretching out his wrist a little bit, right?
Yes.
And in charge of liftoff today is Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson. She and her team are just across the street from us inside of the Launch Control Center. They kicked off continuous around-the-clock operations just before 5 p.m. on Monday and started fueling the rocket about 4 hours ago. They have a 2-hour launch window that opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, which our clock in the upper left-hand corner is counting down to. And, we just heard from Charlie Blackwell-Thompson in our tanking coverage, which was the broadcast just before this one kicked off. And basically, she said weather is 80% go.
Yes, 80%, we will take that. It's a little windy. There's some clouds building, but we're going to keep an eye on it, and 80% is a good number to keep moving today.
Yeah, and what she said was a wave of showers are moving west, but they should be well past the pad by the time we launch again. Hopefully at 6:24 p.m. today.
Hopefully.
All right, so again, let's head back into that suit-up room. We see Reed Wiseman. He is the commander of the Artemis II crew, and Nicole, he is putting on what you guys are calling the communications cap, the comm cap.
Yes, so it's a little bit for protection of his, of his head there, but also you can see the mic booms, and he's got ear cups there so he can hear, the rocket's loud. So you're going to wear hearing protection, but then we also want to be able to talk to Earth and talk to each other. So they're getting that settled, and then he will put the helmet on over that comm cap. That cum cap will also connect into the suit, which then eventually connects into the capsule through an umbilical there. So there's a lot of cords and wires. You can see them tuck in that cord under his chin right now.
And so the suits they're wearing, they're called the Orion Crew Survival Suits, or OX suits. And so they're worn for launch and reentry or during high-risk or emergency situations. And I think a lot of people, especially if they're have been following NASA for all these decades now, they're kind of thinking, hey, these look like the suits that our shuttle astronauts used to wear. There is a lot of resemblance here.
That's true. Yeah, they are very similar. NASA does a great job of leveraging the lessons that we learn from previous missions. So dating all the way back to Apollo, some of our first spaceflight missions, we learned lessons about the suits and how to make them better, and we just continued to carry that through all the way into the Artemis mission.
Time now to introduce you to some of our teams today. We have Gary Jordan at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. He's going to be inside with the mission control teams, which will take over from Kennedy's launch control team right at liftoff. And then back here at Florida, there's Megan Carter inside Kennedy Space Center's visitor complex, Jasmine Hopkins at a launch viewing location, and then finally Daryl Nail inside the Launch Control Center with the launch team. Now, each is going to provide a very unique experience today, starting first with Daryl, who has been closely monitoring the launch countdown for us.
Yeah, and welcome into Firing Room 1, a historic firing room here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here reporting what's happening as we lead up to countdown and liftoff of Artemis II. So far, looking pretty good. You see the rocket out there on the pad. It is launch day, and we just got that crew weather brief that you were talking about from Launch Director Charlie Blackwell-Thompson to the crew. It looks like a countdown at this point is in good shape, and that's great news. Fueling continues to track well. We just reached all stages replenish. And while we're talking about the fueling, let's talk about that tanking. Pull up the tanking graphic if we could now. That will give us an indication of where we are with tanking, and I can just tell you, as you see from this board right here, we are all stages replenish. So all tanks on board the SLS, the 2 liquid hydrogen, lower stage and upper stage, and 2 liquid oxygen, lower stage and upper stage, are at 100%, and that's exactly where we want to be. This kicked off at 7:30 this morning with a go for cryo load, and here we are roughly about 5 hours later, and we're fully tanked and now in replenish. The amount of propellant on board, roughly 733,000 gallons. That's about an Olympic-sized pool and a half. Huge amount of propellant. It's all flowed in there. The great news there, no leaks, no issues, and we're looking good at this point. So let's talk weather now. The weather, while it is favorable overall, it's not totally clean, and that was hinted at earlier when we talked about the storms. There is, of course, some onshore flow. Currently, our overall attempt percentage stands at 80% chance of acceptable weather conditions at the time of liftoff, which is going to be within our launch window. That's tonight from 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time until 8:24 p.m. Eastern Time. Winds are good. The lightning risk is low. But scattered showers still remain possible around the Cape and including near the pad. So the expectation is that there'll be some more active weather coming our way, but we're expecting it to push to the west. So the watch item is really any isolated shower that could briefly move through the area and trigger a constraint, especially for flight through precipitation. Well, you're looking now inside the astronaut suit-up room, and of course we got the 4 astronauts there. They talked to Charlie Blackwell-Thompson today, and everything looks good there. We're tracking one minor NC issue at this point. We'll talk. It's a non-conformance. We'll talk about that a little bit later in our next hit. But for now, again, looking good. And of course, our administrator for NASA is here in the firing room. He checked in with the launch director, chatted with her for several minutes, and he's here in the firing room, which is a good positive sign, of course, for the day. That's it for the firing room. We'll send it back now to Megan and Nicole.
Daryl, thank you so much. Yeah, let's get back into the suit-up room here, where we now have a shot of all 4 astronauts, and it appears all of them are undergoing their suit leak checks. Can you talk to us about what that is, Nicole?
Sure. Yeah, you can see, as the suit expands, that we're going to pressurize those suits. So, in the case that we need it, if we lose pressure in the capsule, those suits will protect the astronauts and keep them pressurized and keep them survivable. So, these guys are going to hold their breath for about 10 seconds. Any movement in the suit could cause changes in the pressure, and so we want to get a really nice, precise, accurate measurement on the leak check. And so they'll hold their breath. Even just their heartbeat could potentially make some differences in those super sensitive sensors there. So you can see the red and blue valves there, the air in and air out, and it looks like Victor just had a good leak check.
Yeah, and actually they do 3 leak checks, again, just to get an average reading to say, hey, we have confidence that these suits are holding the right pressure. As Nicole said, that tube that's going in, that's putting air into their suits, and then there was that gold instrument that you saw on their other side. That's how they can control how much pressure is being released in order to do these checks.
Yep, and they will do the leak checks here in the suit room, and then they'll do more actually in the capsule as well. They'll do another leak check. So we're going to make sure the suits are ready to go before we even step out the door, and then we'll check them with the entire system on the capsule once they get out to the rocket.
And you might also notice that some of the astronauts, while they're doing their suit leak checks, you might have seen Victor gave an OK sign. You might also see a thumbs up, and that's because concurrently, while they're doing these suit leak checks, they're also doing comm checks.
Yes, yeah, we talked about the comm cap earlier and the umbilical and how they plug in. So yeah, they're going to test the comm, they're going to test the suit, make sure everything. They're actually probably testing the cooling system as well right now. They're going to plug into the portable cooling system and make sure that all of that is working. So like I said, we want to make sure we've got 4 healthy suits before we go out.
Yeah, this suit, 3 layers, so obviously it can get hot.
Yes.
So one of the layers is a cooling undergarment, and basically they flow cold liquid through that undergarment to keep the astronauts cool and comfortable before liftoff today.
Yeah, it's like a onesie with a bunch of tubes running around it, and the water flows through there to cool you down.
All right, lots of information to share with you all today. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. All you have to do is send your questions our way by tagging @NASA Artemis, and we'll try to answer as many of your questions live. And we'll also have some questions for you throughout the broadcast, so we hope you can participate in those opportunities as well. Okay, as we continue to be inside the suit-up room here, why don't we learn a little bit about each of our crew members? Right now, we are looking at pilot Victor Glover, but hopefully we can get a shot here of our commander, Reed Wiseman. Now, Reed Wiseman is a Baltimore native. He's been in space once before as flight engineer for Expedition 41 aboard the International Space Station from May through November 2014. During the 165-day mission, Reed and his crewmates completed, get this, more than 300 science experiments in areas like human physiology, medicine, physical science, earth science, and also astrophysics. They actually set a milestone for station science by completing a record 82 research hours in a single week. He also served as chief of NASA's astronaut office from December 2020 to November 2022, and Reed has 2 daughters.
Yeah, I love, Reed is such a great leader. He was the chief of the astronaut office when they hired our class of astronauts. And so, I think I have to publicly thank him for my job here today. But yeah, he's a family man, he's a good leader, and he's a great pick for the commander of this mission.
Yeah, I think, in talking through some of his other accomplishments, obviously he has leadership qualities that makes him prepared for commander of Artemis II.
Yes, he does. He's a well-experienced naval officer and now NASA astronaut.
And so now here we are, pilot Victor Glover. NASA selected the California native as an astronaut in 2013. At the time, he was actually serving as a legislative fellow in the United States Senate. His first trip to space was in November 2020 when he launched as pilot of NASA's SpaceX Crew 1 mission. That was the first operational mission of NASA's Commercial Crew program, which resumed launching American rockets from American soil to the International Space Station at the end of the shuttle program. Victor is a U.S. Navy captain and naval aviator who served as a test pilot, racking up more than 3,500 flight hours in more than 40 different aircraft. He and his wife, Deanna, have 4 children.
Yeah, 4 children, a lot of energy, but that checks, right? Because when I think of Victor Glover, I think of a lot of energy, smart guy who's always excited and ready to go. And there you go, he's smiling in the suit room this morning.
Oh, yeah, he's a great guy. All of them are. This whole entire crew, they're just a good group of human beings, of leaders, of friends, family. You know, I have never heard anybody say anything bad about any of these 4. They're all so well accomplished, and they're also deserving of this opportunity to return to the moon.
Yeah, and they're also humble, right? They're just standard humans going to the moon, but you would never know that when you talk to them in a normal conversation.
And so it looks like Christina here has completed her suit leak checks as well, her communication checks too.
Yep, they've already got her gloves off. They're getting ready to kind of hang out and relax a little bit, I think, before they walk out.
She is a mission specialist for this mission, native of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Was selected to the Astronaut Corps in 2013, so actually same class as Victor. She served as flight engineer on the International Space Station from March 2019 to February 2020. And during that time, Cook set a record for the longest single space flight by a woman with a total of 328 consecutive days in space. She also participated in the first ever all-female spacewalk. And before becoming an astronaut, Christina helped build space science instruments and led scientific field work in some of the most remote environments on the planet. Her hobbies include surfing, rock climbing, community service, yoga, travel, and photography. Again, so much. When does she find the time?
That's a great question. You know, one of the things I love about Christina is that she's broken records and she's achieved all these milestones. But one of the things that she talks about is, you know, she just wants people to set goals and go work hard and do something that's meaningful to you. And she really hopes that her records are broken as soon as possible. She does it for her family, and she'll talk about all of her nieces and nephews quite a bit. So just, again, another example of just a humble human who's got a great support system in her family and excited for the mission.
Yeah, she's always saying that she just wants the opportunity to push people farther, to push humanity farther, see what we can accomplish together. So, yeah. Again, all 4 of them say that. They're really in tune on what they think or what they feel like their role is in this mission.
Yeah, I think their legacy is going to be, you know, providing the shoulders for others to climb on.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, first-time flyer, Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen will fly to the moon as a mission specialist on the Artemis II mission. The London, Ontario native was selected as an astronaut in 2009. After that, he worked as Capcom at NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston. Capcom stands for Capsule Communicator, and that's the sole direct voice communicating with astronauts in space. He also participated in training exercises such as living on the ocean floor off the coast of Florida to simulate deep space exploration for 7 days. In 2017, he became the first Canadian to lead a NASA astronaut class. He also enjoys getting out on a sailboat, rock climbing, and mountain biking. Jeremy and his wife, Catherine, have 3 children, and he actually got to hang out with them over the weekend. So the crew arrived here for launch at Kennedy Space Center on Friday, and then their family members arrived Saturday.
Yes, yeah. They, as long as their family can quarantine with them, then they will stay, you know, quarantined in Houston, and then they all fly down to Kennedy Space Center, and then you get to spend the last few days with your close family and friends. We actually do a behind-the-glass visit with some of those other maybe extended family members that couldn't quarantine with you. But yeah, it's a quaint time here once you get to Kennedy Space Center.
A great sign here, all 4 astronauts have removed their helmets. And that indicates again that all 4 have completed suit leak checks. And so, Nicole, what they're doing now is they have these pockets on their forearms. That's just somewhere where they can put personal items that they might want, right?
Yeah, just kind of stowage pockets. You know, there's always something that you might need or want while you're in the capsule, and then also last-minute personal items if you want to put a couple things in there. So everybody kind of has their own unique stash in their pockets.
And then another pocket has emergency equipment that they might need, right? Like a signaling mirror, things like that.
Right, yeah, the suit is basically all in one. You know, it's got the oxygen bottles there on their right legs. You'll see in a different shot, they've got pockets with survival gear in it, and that is to keep them safe. So if they had to egress the capsule, either from the launch pad or from the water, then they will have all of the survival gear with them. They'll have about 10 minutes of oxygen as well from that bottle so that they can get to safety quickly and safely.
We are now 5 hours, 3 minutes and counting from the opening of our 2-hour launch window, and we have our first questions from social media. Question here from X. So to be clear, this is not a mission to land, but to orbit the moon. Thank you, and thank our astronauts. Nicole.
Yeah, this is a great question. You know, I think it's important to highlight the mission of Artemis II, where we are going to go around the moon. We're going to see the far side of the moon. We're going to see parts of the far side of the moon that human eyes have never seen before. It's very similar to the Apollo 8 mission, right? We're also potentially going to be able to see the landing sites for the future Artemis missions and kind of provide the overall context of those landing sites amongst the entire moon site there. So it's an exciting mission. We'll get to learn a ton about you know, there's so much science that's going to be on this mission as well, right? Where they're going to do some science experiments on humans, learn about the stress of the environment, and we're going to learn about the radiation environment. We're going to learn about the suits as well. We've got some technology demonstrations that are going to happen. So there's a lot going on this mission as we fly around the moon and come back.
Mm-hmm. We always say it's about increments, right? Like we're making that next giant leap to Mars, but in order to do that safely and to do that thoroughly, incremental steps.
Exactly. And, you know, like we said, this is the first time that we've put crew on this rocket. And so actually before we even head to the moon, right, we're going to stay close to the Earth, and we're going to check out all of the systems on Orion, make sure that it can handle 4 humans, make sure it can handle people sleeping, people exercising, you know, all of the environmental control systems are working. So we want to make sure that the capsule is safe for the crew before we send them, you know, almost 250,000 miles away.
Yeah, that was a great question. And we actually have another one that we'll pull up on screen here. Another question from X. How long will it take them to reach the moon, and how long will the entire mission last?
Another great question, right? So they're going to do a couple orbits around the Earth. They'll do a perigee and an apogee raise burn. What that means is that they're going to accelerate to get further away from the Earth, and they'll get into a really highly elliptical orbit first. And then once they get into the translunar injection, so they're actually on a free return trajectory, which means we're going to accelerate them, and then they're going to escape Earth's gravity, and then just based on orbital mechanics, they'll be able to come home without having to do another burn or acceleration. So it'll take about 4 days once they leave Earth's gravity to get to the moon. They'll fly around the moon, about 4 days back, and then land. So overall, about a 10-day mission.
Exactly. Yeah, these are really great questions, guys. We know that, again, we are sharing a lot of information today, so please do not hesitate to reach out. Obviously, Nicole, very smart here, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. Again, tag @NASA Artemis wherever you're watching this coverage. And now we actually have a question for you. Who would you take with you on a trip around the moon? Would it be your bestie? Would it be a pet, family member, or a seasoned astronaut? Think about that one. I know.
I like that.
I absolutely know what I would say. I think it would make my husband upset, but I have my answer here. But we'd love for you to go to NASA's Instagram or Twitch accounts to vote. Again, who would you take to the moon with you? Bestie, pet, family, or seasoned astronaut? Try to go vote, and then we will share your answers soon. Again, husband is not gonna like my answer. And we're not the only ones with questions today. We will also hear from celebrities during our launch coverage. See what Stanley Tucci, Scarlett Johansson, and others want to know about NASA's Artemis II test flight. Plus the surprise of a lifetime as kids marveled at the rocket and spacecraft rolling to the launch pad. Look at those cute faces there. Oh, I love that. Love those suits. And we'll show you how the astronauts will eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom while in space. Keep in mind, the Orion spacecraft is about the size of a 6-person tent.
Yeah. not super big, but it's 10 days with your 3 best friends, so I think it's manageable for sure. But every ounce counts when you're trying to get to the moon.
And as we continue to look into the suit-up room here, a fist pump for some of the folks in the crowd there by Victor. Why don't we take a look around the center here? We know that there are some folks who are already getting ready to check out the team here as they drive across KSC to their launch pad. Look at that. Oh, that's so awesome.
That's a great crowd.
They're waiting there in front of the vehicle assembly building. So actually, they're just down the road from us. This is a good crowd, as Nicole said. Oh, there they are. They just got their cue. Oh, now? Let me wave now.
Oh, yeah, they are excited.
That's amazing. So all of these folks, content creators that are getting behind-the-scenes access as part of NASA's NASA social experience here. So as you can see, very excited. The crew will get into their convoy and drive past them here pretty shortly.
Yeah, what an amazing way to share the Artemis story, right? By inviting these social media experts out to share the story as they drive by.
All right, again, let's take a look at the clock. 4 hours, 58 minutes and counting from the opening of today's 2-hour launch window. So why don't we check back in with Daryl with the launch team.
Megan and Nicole, and inside Fire Room 1, I'm listening to Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson greet the Ascent crew who just came on console over there at Johnson Space Center. So good to have the Mission Control team jumping on with us. So far, the launch team here in the firing room has had a really good morning. Really smooth tanking that kicked off at 7:30 a.m. this morning. They got to all stages replenish just before 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and it was an incredibly smooth tanking. That's great as we look here watching the crew and also with an eye on the rocket. Weather, of course, we've talked a little bit about that. It's favorable overall, 80% go for our 2-hour window between 6:24 p.m. and 8:24 p.m. We don't have an exact T0 right now because that's going to come to us closer when we get closer to launch, roughly about 20 minutes before liftoff. But it's going to be within that window and towards the beginning, provided everything continues to go smoothly along the timeline, and so far that's been the case. I mentioned that there was a small issue in my previous live hit. That actually was incorrect. There was no issue. I've gotten the good data now that I'm on the headset and listening into the loops. Avionics engineers are keeping an eye on a display unit inside Orion that's just running a little cooler than normal. It's not going out of limit. It's actually completely fine. But they just were noting the trend and reported that to the NASA test director. So they'll keep their eyes on that. But again, there was no LCC violation. And once they get the cover off Orion out there that's protecting it from the rain, they expect the temperatures inside the Orion crew capsule to stabilize. And with that, we'll send it back to the host desk with Megan and Nicole.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Now, Daryl is inside Firing Room 1 in the Launch Control Center, or LCC, as you might hear it referred to, which was built in 1967 to support Apollo missions. In fact, Apollo 11, the mission that landed on the moon in 1969, that was called from the exact same firing room. NASA then upgraded the LCC to support shuttle missions, and now Artemis. You can see there a shot from when we supported shuttle. Now with Artemis, the primary launch team for today is in Firing Room 1, but there is actually support staff in Firing Room 2 as well. And together they will propel this ambitious test flight off Earth.
We're going back to the moon because it's the next step in our journey to Mars. We need to go explore the moon. There's vast regions of unexplored areas with the coldest, darkest places in our solar system. This is a test mission, and when we get off the planet, we might come right back home. We might spend 3 or 4 days around Earth. We might go to the moon. That's where we want to go, but it is a test mission, and we are ready for every scenario as we ride this amazing space launch system in the Orion spacecraft.
But another reason we're going back to the moon is to fulfill NASA's mission, which is to explore the unknown in air and space, to innovate for the benefit of humanity, and to inspire the world through discovery. And when we succeed and when we accomplish the things that we set out to accomplish, that inspiration not only can set up new things to happen, but it also is a reminder in tough times that we're capable of doing great things when we work together.
The thing I love about the moon is that it's not just a beacon for exploration and this platform of possibilities for incredible missions like this, but it has benefits. That's actually why we're racing towards it. Those benefits are really wide in nature. You have everything from innovation, technology development, not only for future missions going deeper into the solar system, but technologies that come back to Earth. You have inspiration, a whole generation of people starting this pipeline of STEM workers and manufacturers and operators that are excited to see what you can do when you work hard and you come together as a team.
When I think about the 4 of us flying around the far side of the moon, seeing that Earth rise, taking images and video and sending them back to you, the feeling that I have inside is hope. We know that Artemis II is not the solution for humanity on planet Earth, but it is a contribution in the positive column. We hope that just for a moment that people will pause and say, wow, it's extraordinary when you look back upon the Earth with over 8 billion people, and you see this concrete example of what humanity can do, this extraordinary thing when we set big goals and we work together to achieve them.
Now, Kennedy's launch control team takes us to liftoff, but then mission control at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston takes over. That's where we have our Gary Jordan embedded with that team. Hey, Gary.
Hey, Megan and Nicole, it's great to be joining you from here in Houston, Texas. I'm in NASA's Mission Control Center, where the Artemis II Ascent flight control teams, led by Flight Director Judd Freeling, recently started their shift to monitor the Orion spacecraft integrity, the Space Launch System, and the crew to make sure all criteria is met to commit to today's launch and the mission ahead. The team you see here in this room today has been training extensively to prepare for the highly dynamic phase of flight that begins shortly after engine ignition. Teams here will be monitoring the flight of the Space Launch System, Orion, and of course the Artemis II crew on board as they make their way from the Kennedy Space Center into Earth orbit. The lead console positions will be in this room, called the White Flight Control Room, a room which traces its legacy to the Space Shuttle program, with the first shift supporting STS-70 in 1995, more than 30 years ago. Each console represents an expert in a particular discipline, whether it be communications, propulsion, crew health, life support systems, or trajectory. And each of these individuals has a support team in other rooms, each ensuring that no data point is left unchecked, no procedure is missed, and combining efforts as one Artemis team to ensure crew safety and mission success. After liftoff, Mission Control Houston will be staffed around the clock over the next 10 days until the spacecraft is safed for the recovery teams and the crew is extracted from integrity and brought aboard the recovery vessel. The roar of a powerful Space Launch System liftoff is just the beginning. The mission is, of course, a test mission, and the first with humans on board Orion and in deep space. The crew's job is to put the systems and capabilities of Orion to the test, taking us closer to a sustained presence on the lunar surface. It's great to see the crew gathered around the table. Megan, with that, we'll toss it back to you as we continue to monitor from here in Mission Control Houston. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Gary. Yes, a pre-flight tradition that we have seen with our crewed flights and our astronauts, the card game, Nicole.
Yeah, you know, this is a fun time for the crew. Kind of relax a little bit, play a card game with the chief. You can see Scott Tingle there is the dealer today. Looks like they're playing high card wins. So Victor won, he's out. Now Jeremy's out. You know, there are two schools of thought on this game. Either you want to get rid of all your bad luck or go out on a high note. So it looks like the crew chose we're going out on a high note. And, you know, I think one of my favorite parts when I talked to Reed about this is he was just excited to play a game with his old boss from Naval Test Pilot School. So once again, his boss today.
Yeah, and I love this part of the tradition because this is when, again, you usually see them like, yeah, laughing, but very focused still. But when they get to this table, laughs, high fives, smiles, just really a brief moment of levity in what can be and will be a very long day for them.
Yes, you know, it's a long day. There's a lot of preparation that goes in today, and so they're just, I think, at least for us, it was a nice brief moment of some relaxation, a couple laughs, you know, a moment to take a few deep breaths and reflect on the mission ahead, and then, you know, get some high fives as well.
And so with their bad luck dispelled, some good luck from Scott Tingle, let it seem like there, right?
Yes, definitely. It's actually a really fun tradition. You know, I think that card game is more steeped in tradition than anything else. Every crew has played that same card game.
As you said, Nicole, the primary reason for why they're there to suit up, to do communications checks, to do pressure checks all done, and now it seems like Reed had some words for the team in that room.
Yeah, you know, this day can't happen without thousands of people, right? And so the suit room is a great example of that. You've got all of the suit techs, and you've got your support team there, everyone who has made this day possible. You know, they've been working with the suit team for years at this point, getting ready.
So some fist bumps to the group. Again, the suit team are the folks dressed up in those white, very snazzy outfits. Special outfits that we can talk a little bit more about later. But each crew member was assigned their own suit technician. So as you said, working very closely with the same person to make sure that the crew felt comfortable and ready in these suits as they lift off from Kennedy Space Center.
Right, and you know, each suit is slightly different, each person is slightly different, and so these suit techs know each individual super well. They know exactly how they like to get into the suit, exactly where things might get caught, or, you know, small adjustments that might need to be made. So they know their suit techs well, and their suit techs know them very well.
And so as we take a couple of pictures here, we really hope that you are learning a lot about the suits and the process of checking them out for a mission. But imagine the opportunity to get a hands-on demonstration from people who helped design these suits. Take a look.
Does anyone want to try on one of the gloves? I love showing the kids the suit. I love how excited they get about space.
Oh! So that would be...
It just goes in there? We got to bring some stuff for them to actually put their hands in, and some of them were very excited because they want to be astronauts when they grow up.
I would love to be an astronaut. That would be incredible.
I'd like to be like an engineer that like maybe designs the suits.
Whether it's the calm, the orange color, every aspect has an important function for our astronauts in space.
It's going to be amazing seeing astronauts up close to the moon again.
And that was a special event at Johnson Space Center. What we just saw there, obviously a big part of why this mission is so important to NASA, really just an opportunity to inspire everyone, especially kids, right, Nicole, to dream big and be curious.
Oh man, yeah, the kids are so important, right? I love talking to kids. You know, they are the future of spaceflight. They are the Artemis generation. And, you know, if we could just inspire even one of them to go on to be a scientist or an engineer or maybe even an astronaut someday, that's a win.
And now let's turn our focus to the rocket for a little bit. Powering liftoff will be, again, NASA's Space Launch System rocket right behind us. And to learn more about SLS, let's go to Megan Carter, who's at Kennedy Space Center's Visitor Complex at an exhibit dedicated to Artemis and the future of spaceflight.
That's right, Megan. I am so excited to be over here at the Visitor Center, but not just because of launch. I get to introduce you to the moon board. This is obviously a very complex mission, lots of moving parts and pieces. So the moon board is going to allow me to break some of those things down for you just a little bit more in depth, starting with that SLS rocket. Now, the SLS, or the Space Launch System, very big, very powerful. It is going to be producing 8.8 million pounds of thrust at launch. And like I mentioned, mentioned, very large, as you can see here, going to stand about 322 feet tall with Orion there on top, just a little bit taller than the Statue of Liberty. Now, there are many components that make up this rocket, so I'm going to point out just a handful that you're going to hear about a lot throughout this broadcast, starting with our boosters. These two twin solid rocket boosters are going to be very powerful. They are going to burn for the first 2.5 minutes of flight, and each one is going to stand 17 stories tall. They weigh in at about 1.6 million pounds each. Now, I am going to jump back out and I'm going to show you a little bit about our core stage. That's going to be known as the backbone, essentially, of our rocket, and it is made up of around 5 components, starting with this engine section down here. This engine section is where our 2 propellants are going to be funneled down through our pipelines, and they are going to be mixed at 2 different temperatures, very complex processing, and they are then going to go on to feed that fuel to our 4 very powerful RS-25 engines. These are going to produce about 500,000 pounds of thrust each at launch, and they will burn for 8 minutes. All right, now jumping up here, we are going to take a look, because I just mentioned those propellants. Obviously, we do need fuel, and that is why we have around 535,000 gallons of that liquid hydrogen. That's approximately about the same amount that you could fill an Olympic-sized pool, just to give you an idea. And then we're also going to have that liquid oxygen, and like I mentioned, there's going to be about 200,000 gallons for that one, and they are going to be funneled down through those lines that you see here on the side. All right, jumping up real quick, this is going to be our upper stage. That is where our core avionics are going to be stored, essentially the brains of the spacecraft. And then jumping out super quick, let's see if we can zoom in here, and we can. Those propellants I talked about are going to be stored at cryogenic temperatures. That means thousands of degrees below Fahrenheit, so they have to be kept very cold. And that, all those bumps and ridges there that you see, those are actually going to be an insulation spray that's going to help keep that rocket nice and cool, keep the propellants ready to go, and get us set up for success. Now, obviously, that was a very quick overview of our rocket. I have so much more to show you here on our moon board, but for now, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Megan. A very impressive demo of the moon board, but also an impressive system, obviously. She mentioned 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage, and actually we have one right behind us here, used during the shuttle program, and I got to get a closer look at it with Space Launch Systems Engines Deputy Manager Philip Benefield.
Okay, so Philip, in terms of size, shape, and function, what we see here behind us, exactly what we see on the pad.
Absolutely, Megan, absolutely. So this is the RS-25 engine.
Impressive.
We have 4 of these on the bottom of the SLS rocket to propel the SLS rocket in Orion into low Earth orbit.
And we've been seeing views of the pad throughout this broadcast, but you mostly only see the bell here. What's happening over here?
Right, so this is generally what we call the power head section of the engine. So the purpose here is that it takes in the propellants from the vehicle tanks, the liquid oxygen minus 297 degrees, super cold stuff. The liquid hydrogen even colder, minus 423 Fahrenheit. There's 4 turbo pumps on the engine that pressurize that propellant up to 9,000 psi in areas. It is all directed into the main combustion chamber, where it is burned into hot gas that then is accelerated out the nozzle to produce thrust.
When you say hot gas, what are we talking about?
We're talking 6,000 degrees Fahrenheit gas.
Wow, so we're talking really cold as liquids coming into the combustion chamber, and then it comes out as really, really hot gas. How do you design, how do you engineer something to control both extremes?
Absolutely, it's very technically challenging. One of the main things here with the nozzle is that since you have the 6,000 degree Fahrenheit gas coming out, you have to cool that nozzle so it doesn't melt. And so the way the nozzle is constructed with these 1,080 coolant tubes. And so each of these coolant tubes flows a small amount of hydrogen. It keeps it cold, and so it doesn't melt during operation.
Wow. I mean, all of this science that you're talking about, it is truly amazing that you guys designed this for shuttle, and yet you've reconfigured it, retooled it to be able to now support Artemis. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's really amazing, the fact that we were able to use the heritage hardware on the Space Launch System. The engine itself, developed through the Space Shuttle program, many upgrades to make it more reliable and improve the thrust as well.
Perfect. Philip, thank you so much. I can't wait to see all 4 function.
Same here. Thanks, Megan. Enjoyed it.
And again, another idea and way that we are learning from what we've built upon and figured out all into this moment.
Yes, with so much more thrust and capability. Like we said, we learn all those lessons from previous missions, and we get to involve them here today.
And here we are, the closeout crew in the White Room getting ready for the astronauts who have just left crew suit up and are now walking down a hallway to greet some family and friends downstairs. Commander Reed Weissman, Pilot Victor Glover, Mission Specialist Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen. Looking excited, ready. Now in that elevator to take them 3 floors down. Thumbs up, one more photo, one more photo. Oh, nope, a couple more people in that elevator. Those are important folks. They're going with them to the pad.
Yeah,
Bye, Reed.
This is a fun elevator ride.
Yeah.
And, actually you couldn't see them because they're off camera, but the support crew that's actually in crew quarters with us is right there waving goodbye and saying goodbye to you. So it's a really special moment to say thank you and say goodbye to the support crew at crew quarters.
That's amazing. And so again, they will ride down 3 floors. And then soon we'll walk out the doors that you see underneath the banner there that says their names. These doors, the same doors that astronauts who have launched from Kennedy Space Center have walked out of since the Apollo program.
Yes, and you can see another tradition is putting your patch on that archway as well. So I'm sure they did that over the last couple days.
They did. It's actually it's so hard to see because there's so many of them, which is also great, but it's on the door frame on the right-hand side, the very, very bottom.
Awesome.
Great crowd here. A shot now of everyone who is waiting to greet the crew as they walk out of the operations and checkout building here at Kennedy Space Center and will board their ride to the launch pad.
Yeah, this is a really great shot, right? Because you get to see a little bit of what goes on there. So you've got the close family that were in quarantine with them up close. They get a wave goodbye one last time. You've got a little bit of media in the background, and then you've got some NASA employees and a lot of the program managers off to the side as well to wave goodbye one last time and wish them luck.
Yeah, it's a really nice moment. Again, they have had some quality time with family, but this is their final opportunity to say, see ya in 10 days.
Yep, the last wave.
And so there are different pens of people, again, as Nicole was alluding to, specific to the quarantine rules that you followed in order to be able to have that access, have that closeness with the crew. And then on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, the Astrovan. And that is going to be the crew's ride out to the launch pad. This modified Airstream motorhome can seat up to 8 people inside. It has a TV and sound system, and we know they plan to watch a video during their trip out, right, Nicole?
Yes. So I think Top Gun is on the menu,
yes.
And then also Point Break because Christina surfs. So I think they've got a pretty decent entertainment planned. So
I love that. It gets them in the headspace, the right headspace to really just enjoy the ride to space. NASA's history with Airstream dates back to the 60s when the company created a crew quarantine vehicle for when astronauts returned from the moon. This picture here, President Nixon talking to the Apollo 11 astronauts inside said quarantine vehicle. Then during the shuttle program, Airstream created the first generation Astrovan, a 27-foot motorhome that transported astronauts across KSC to their launch pad. And again, that is what we're going to see today. A very similar picture. Again, the orange suits, the Astrovan, very reminiscent of what we have done before and how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool ride. You get about 20 minutes to get out to the launch pad and watch a movie, listen to some music. It's kind of an interesting, and then along the whole way here at KSC, all of the employees from Kennedy Space Center come out. You can see in the background of the shot you're looking at right now, all of those employees and everybody lining the streets, waving and wishing them luck.
I think this is an emotional moment for a lot of people because this is the last time where a lot of people will be with the crew, because once they get to the pad, there's only a handful of folks with them before launch.
Yeah, definitely. This can be emotional for the crew, can be emotional for the families, of course. I mean, I got to wave goodbye one last time to my sister, and when we walked out those doors, and yeah, it's surreal. You know, it starts to become much more real the closer and closer you get to the launch pad.
20 seconds now from when we expect the crew to walk out those doors. It must be really hard for them to patiently wait for these very specific milestones.
You've got a whole group back there that's telling jokes and keeping it light. So.
And here they are, NASA's Artemis II crew. Commander Reed Weissman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialist Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen taking their first steps outside for their historic test flight. To a wonderful applause from the crowd. They're looking really excited.
Some
and
big
really
smiles.
Ready.
I love that.
It's a great day for us. It's a great day for this team.
A few words from Reed. Great day for us, the team, he said. Thumbs up, more thumbs up. Of course, a lot of pictures. We hear some camera shutter clicks back there. I love the energy of this crowd. Let's go. And so now the crew walking over to each of their pens. The first people closest to them, of course, their family members who got to quarantine with them, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so the ones that are close and waving, those are the immediate family, so spouses, partners, kids.
And we're trying to give them some privacy so that they can have their conversations with their family members. Christina there, she has her husband. Victor has 4 daughters and his wife, they're there. Reed, his 2 daughters are there. And then Jeremy, his wife, 2 daughters and a son. You know, when you were standing in their shoes, Nicole, when you flew for Crew 10, what were you kind of talking about? Like, did you really think about this moment and what you might want to say?
You know, they've all already done their real goodbyes, you know, in person. And so this is more just kind of, again, that last chance to wave, last chance to get one smile. You know, you see Christina there smiling. So this felt much less heavy and just, you know, waving and maybe cracking a joke or something, saying hi. So this was a really, really great moment for our crew.
Reed's 2 daughters there. Reed spoke about when he told them that he was selected to be the Artemis II commander. And he said he was worried. He's a single dad, didn't know how they would react. And actually, he said he was overwhelmed by their support. He woke up the next morning with cupcakes baked by one of the daughters, moon cupcakes.
Yes, I love this story. Moon cupcakes the next morning. Like, how awesome is that, right? Everybody needs their support system, and clearly he has that in his daughters.
Christina said she took a bike ride with her husband and wanted to tell him when the moon rose, but that it was too foggy. But she said he was still very excited and happy for her.
Yeah, the moon's still out there.
A close-up now of, again, Commander Reed Weissman and Mission Specialist Christina Cook. To the right of your screen, as we pan left, we have pilot Victor Glover. Victor told his wife, and they told their 4 kids together, and he said that one of them just started yelling, "Let's go!"
Yes, I love that. Again, the support from the family is awesome.
And Jeremy said his wife and 3 children, super excited. He felt very supported. You know, he did have that tough conversation, obviously, of talking about the realities of this being a test flight, but he said they were super supportive. And now as he walks away, some kisses from Victor Glover to his family, hearts to Christina. Jeremy being a gentleman, pausing so that Christina can take a nice photo without him. Hearts too from Reed there. Hearing Victor saying, "Love you guys," saying that to some of his crew members there. Woody. Some more applause from the group.
Quick wave to some of the NASA program managers, and I think Norm Knight's out there, the FOD Flight Operations Director.
You heard Reed there saying, "Thank you guys," as the crowd picks up again with their applause, and the 4 of them step into their Astrovan. Looking at the clock, very on schedule right now. Again, according to the very detailed timeline of launch today, they're expected to drive off in about 20 seconds.
So far, we're marching toward the launch smoothly.
Do you think they're queuing up the video?
Definitely.
And that's why they haven't left yet? They're like, we can't go without
Gotta get
our
your
point
snacks and movie
break.
ready.
Yeah. Where's the popcorn? Again, good on the timeline. Of course, they do have these very specific milestones, but this is not one that has to be completely stuck to the second and the minute.
Yeah, we will make up that time easily.
They will get a full security escorted ride out to the launch pad. It's a quick trip, 15, 20 minutes. The closeout crew at the pad still just getting everything ready for their arrival. Configuring Orion, right, Nicole?
Yes, so they're probably laying out the seat restraints and getting all of the umbilicals set and ready to go so that when the crew gets there, they can ingress and start getting strapped in and connected to the capsule.
And in our smaller box there, we have a shot of our administrator, Jared Isaacman. Bouncing around quite a lot today, was in the firing room right after the crew weather brief, saying to the crew that they are good for them to start suiting up, and now here to wish them well as they drive out to the pad.
Yes, he's so invested in this mission. I love it. You know, he's been an active participant today, and exciting to see him there at the walkout. So in the van, they're probably getting hooked up to the portable cooling systems as well. So that would be my guess on the slight delay here, making sure everybody's situated, connected to cooling, and ready to go before they take off.
Right, because the orange boxes, we didn't talk about it when we were in the suit-up room, but if anybody noticed, there are these orange boxes, and that's what provides the cooling to those thermal garments. And so those boxes have been staged inside of the Astrovan so that once they got there, they can connect up again so that they're cool and comfortable on the way out.
Right, so they were off cooling from the walkout, you know, said hello to their families and the 80-degree weather here in Florida today. So it can get really warm in the suit quickly if you're not careful. So you want to make sure everybody's comfortable before we drive off.
And then when they get to the pad, of course, and strapped into Orion, then they don't have any need for those cooling boxes anymore. They will get that cooling through Orion, through the different lines and umbilicals that they'll be connecting to there.
Yep, that's exactly right. The Orion capsule and its environmental control system will take over once they're connected to the umbilical.
And so when we were watching them get into the elevator, I said, oh, there's a couple more people going in there. And they were, again, those folks in the white suits that we saw. Again, suit technicians.
Yep. And there they go.
And off they go. Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy now on their way to launch pad 39B, where they will fly to the moon. Something no human has done in over 50 years. They may also set a new record as the farthest humans have ever been from Earth, a record set by the Apollo 13 crew almost 56 years ago today. We still hear cheers as they drive away from the operations and checkout building here at Kennedy Space Center. Now, while the crew make their way to the pad, let's get to know each of them even better. First, Commander Reed Wiseman.
The moon, to me, it's the thing that connects me together with all the other humans in my life. I remember being a little kid lying in bed at night and just looking out at the moon in whatever phase it was in, and I was thinking, man, my friends that live like 20 miles away, they can probably look out and see that same exact moon. And then when I was in the Navy and I would look out at the moon and I'd be halfway around the planet, I would think, man, my brother can see that moon where he is and he's halfway around the planet from where I am. To me, it's a connection of life on Earth. We can all look up and see that moon, and it's always changing. The moon is never the same 2 days in a row. I love that. My name is Reed Wiseman. I'm the commander of NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. I grew up in a little town just north of Baltimore, Maryland, about 20 miles north of the city. There was a National Guard base nearby my house, and there were A-10 aircraft that would fly over every now and then. I just would look up at them and be like, man, I want to be up there. I want to go do that. And then my brother went to the Naval Academy, and I would go every year and watch the Blue Angels fly during commencement, and that just started to grow and grow and grow. For a while, I wanted to join the Air Force, and then I realized Navy flies as well, and they fly from ships in the middle of the ocean, and that was it. Like, done deal for me. That is exactly what I wanted to do for my career. Flying is freedom to me, especially when you're in a jet aircraft coming off of an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Nearest land is over 1,500 miles away. So when you come off of that aircraft carrier, you are truly just alone with yourself out there. It is a magical experience to be out there all by yourself in an aircraft over the Pacific. It's free. I think anybody who accomplishes something that they set their mind out to, there's no one thing that does it for them. It's a combination of everything. I mean, the way my parents raised me, the way my brother and I, the way our relationship developed over time, my friends, being in the marching band, going to college, setting my own course, learning how to live on my own, being mentored along the way, being, kept on the path to success, but being given the freedom to, make excursions and fail every now and then and regroup and carry on. I think all those things come together in the end to get you where you are. I've had to overcome, I'm a human being. I've had to overcome a lot of fears. I'm pretty scared of heights. I joked about that on the International Space Station, but it turns out I'm only scared like at the edge of a building. When you're up on the International Space Station, even though you're 250 miles up, I never had that feeling of falling or that I was, at risk up there. I just kind of loved the feeling of floating and looking down at Earth. There have been challenges all throughout my life. By far, the biggest challenge was losing my wife in 2020 to cancer and now raising two daughters who are grown up now, but that's been the biggest challenge by far I've ever had to face. It is not easy. Being an only parent, trying to work a full-time job, and raising two kids is something that I think about every single day. I'm very proud of the work I've done. I haven't always done it well, but I've always shown up and tried as hard as I possibly can.
And now Artemis II pilot Victor Glover and his journey to this history-making moment.
I do wonder what it's going to be like when we are really far from Earth and can see it. The sensation of being so far away from everything that you know. I had that sensation on the space station the first time I got to sit in the cupola for a really long time. So I can only imagine what that's going to be like from 200,000 plus miles away. My name is Victor Glover, and I'm the pilot for NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. When I was in 4th grade, I was 10 years old, and that's when the Challenger accident happened. And it helped me understand how the general public felt about the astronaut corps, right? Like, these are the people that we want to be, and that just gave me an easy thing to strive toward. The biggest fear that I've had to overcome in my life is doubting myself. Going to college when no one in my family had gone to college was a huge risk. I had more confidence in my athletic ability than in my academic abilities. I could play football with those college students that I saw on TV, but my classmates that I saw in the lab and around the University Union, I didn't know if I had what they had. I think addressing that self-doubt was a part of, swinging for the fence and trying to go get an engineering degree, not just go to college, but get an engineering degree and then go do something challenging and technical like flying. Apollo is known for sending humans to the moon. Artemis has an opportunity to continue the Apollo story, but I actually think it's important for this story to stand on its own. Artemis is a new program, and we're trying to do new things. And it's great to compare and contrast. When you look at our spaceship, you can see parts that were designed, built, and integrated in another country. When you look at our crew, you see that our crew is international. There are also men and women. And I just think that comparing and contrasting makes the story even richer. The piloting role specifically, I will have an hour and a half or so where I get to fly the spacecraft by hand. We haven't flown that many spaceships. And so the ability to fly one actually in space on a test mission is just a really unique opportunity. I can't tell you how I'm going to feel when we fly by the moon and see the moon up close and the Earth from 250,000 miles away, but I don't use the word excited because I'm focused. You know, what we do, this is very serious and it's very risky, and we are all intimately familiar with that risk. And so if we go out there and we're successful and we can pass that baton on to Artemis II, that's something to really be excited about.
Great to hear from Reed and Victor in their own words about how they feel about this mission and their role in it as the convoy turns this corner here onto the road where the vehicle assembly building is, and where the group that we showed you earlier today, ready with their flags. Wow, that group has expanded exponentially.
Love this.
Yes, this is great.
So many people.
Flags, oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, this must feel so special to the crew to see all of these people here to wish them well.
Yes, this is heartwarming. Look at how many people there are. Everyone is so excited about this mission.
Signs, people have made signs. I feel like the Astrovan has slowed down a little bit, you know, to really take in the moment.
Wow.
That's amazing there. Again, crowds continue going as we are now passing the historic vehicle assembly building. This is where the Space Launch System rocket was assembled and stacked with Orion. Its history, of course, goes back to the Apollo days, but today it is home to the Artemis missions to the moon and beyond. Gosh, still people lining the route. Yep.
I love that.
I do too. It leaves me kind of speechless, you know, just to see all the support, all of the people who want to know that they're thinking of them, they're with them, and the fact that this crew specifically has always said we are going for all by all. This must be really special to them.
Yes, and that's just here on Kennedy Space Center. Imagine the rest of Florida right now.
Yep. Mission Specialist Christina Cook, who holds the record for the most consecutive days in space by a woman. Let's take a look at what she has to say about this mission.
I tell a story, which is one that my dad told me before the Apollo missions when he was just a very little boy. He was looking up at the moon with his mom, and his mom said to him, "Don't worry, Ronnie, we'll never get there." Fast forward maybe 70 years later, it's his daughter that's actually going there. And I think that long arc is something that we can all learn from. The idea that the seemingly impossible becomes possible if you just believe in it and are willing to work hard and come together to achieve it. My name is Christina Cook, and I'm a mission specialist for NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. When I look back at my dreams as a kid, I definitely never thought I would actually get here. I was very pragmatic. Even though I'm a dreamer, I knew that the odds were way against me again, so I might as well do something I'm loving in the meantime. I definitely loved science and math in school and, did pretty well in those things, but I also loved being active. I was always outside. I loved things that made me feel small. I loved looking at the night sky, oftentimes between the pine tree branches, or I loved the ocean. North Carolina also has mountains, and when we go there, I just loved the vastness of all of those things. I loved how they made me feel and what they made me think about, and the vastness of the universe and how much out there was to learn. I'm drawn to exploring. I'm drawn to challenges that involve both mental and physical, and I'd much rather be solving problems wearing a whole lot of equipment and in a harsh environment, and that's just something I've carried with me ever since I was a kid. Thinking about the fears or challenges that I've had to overcome, there are just so many. I mean, basically, that has been the journey. I always say to people, do what scares you, and that means I have to follow my own advice. So doing what scares me meant getting on a plane and going to the Antarctic, getting on a plane and going to study abroad in Ghana, applying to become an astronaut, opening the EVA hatch in the airlock and going out of it into the darkness, strapping myself onto a rocket. And so for me, I think that no matter what the challenge, recognizing that if people believe in you and you believe they believe in you, the challenges seem always a little bit easier. To me, the moon, it represents history. It is a witness plate. Everything that's ever happened to the moon is still written on the moon. Every single person has looked at the moon their entire lives. We see the same moon. That's something really special. It's just the epitome of a symbol of something that's in each of our hearts, but that's also represents exploration and reaching.
And as we continue to watch the convoy, almost at the pad, mission specialist and first-time flyer, Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen.
I have this very distinct memory of seeing an image of an astronaut standing on the moon. It's burnt in my brain because I went back to it so many times in my childhood, and I would look at that image, and I know it had a huge impact on me that humans had walked on the moon. My name is Colonel Jeremy Hansen. I'm an astronaut with the Canadian Space Agency, and I'm a mission specialist on NASA's Artemis II mission around the moon. My elementary school years, I grew up on a farm outside of London, Ontario. I spent as much time as I could with my dad on the farm. I learned the value of hard work, for example. If I wanted to go to work with Dad, it was going to be a long day, and I was going to have to not complain, or I wasn't going to get to go the next day. I had a treehouse. I had a vivid imagination, and I changed my treehouse into a spaceship. I made all these dials and controls. I had circuit breakers for switches that I found in the barn, and I was exploring space in my imagination. The most important thing I did to get to where I wanted to go in life, which was flying fighter jets and eventually becoming an astronaut, is I shared those desires with other people. And it turns out, just like you don't go to the moon on your own, if you could, I would have done it a long time ago in my treehouse as a kid, you have to go as a team. I think the biggest impediment to achieving my goals was, of course, myself. And I think that's a common human experience. There are many times where just little things would get in my way, and my immediate interpretation of that was, well, now that goal's out the window. You know, people must have lifted me back up, and somewhere in the back of my head, that persistence came through. And I think that's a common human experience, to doubt ourselves. I've come to this, I guess, realization that I believe that we all have gifts to contribute, and the goal is to figure out how to use your energy towards adding positively to humanity's existence on this planet. But I love it when humanity sets big goals, like sending humans to the surface of the moon with an eye to eventually going to Mars, because when we do that, we can bring together genius from not just even in one country, but around the world. I've also learned from my indigenous mentors that they refer to the moon as Grandmother Moon. So you've probably heard of Mother Earth. They use Grandmother Moon because Grandmother Moon is responsible for the water in their community, just like the moon moves the water around the planet, affects the tides. And I think that's a really beautiful thing for us as we go back to the moon, to think about all the different cultures around the world and how they view the moon differently. And that's really neat because we all share that same moon in the night sky.
What's really neat, too, was that drive to the launch pad, that point of view to see what the crew is seeing as well, as their Astrovan rides up the pad slope and are now on the surface, about to walk up to their vehicle.
Yeah, you know, we talked about how tall this rocket is earlier.
Wow.
Look at that.
Yeah, look at that point of view, yeah. Pad 39B, another historic place here at Kennedy Space Center. Construction began in 1964, finished 3 years later. Apollo 10, the full dress rehearsal for the moon landing. That was the first mission to launch from this pad.
Yeah, you know, we've used this pad for a lot of missions. You know, we modified the pad in the 70s and 80s, and then the shuttle missions actually launched from here as well.
And then, of course, Artemis I took off from this launch pad November 2022. And now here we are about to see the Artemis II crew get out of the Astrovan and make their way up the mobile launcher to the 274-foot level, where they will embark on their first crewed test flight of the Artemis program.
You know, I think that button in the elevator actually says space when you
It does?
hit it. Yeah.
Really?
At least on 39 Alpha it does. So I imagine it says something similar here.
Again, let's take a look at the clock as we wait for the crew to get out. 4 hours, 10 minutes and counting until the top of our 2-hour launch window today. Let's head back across the street to Daryl, who's following the launch team every step of the way.
All right, thank you, Megan and Nicole. And here inside Firing Room 1, we had a nice moment. The launch director, Charlie Blackwell Thompson, NASA's first female launch director, standing up from her console, taking her cell phone and snapping photos as the Artemis II crew that she had just given the go to leave the astronaut crew quarters, driving by and, of course, going up the causeway until they got there to the pad. And now we see them coming out of the Astro van there and getting ready to ascend the launch tower. Well, we got a weather brief before they went out to the pad, and of course LWO gave a go. There could be some rain out there at the pad. It's already rained out there already. If you're in the area and you're watching right now, well, certainly you know that there's some rain in the area. There's going to be spotty showers that are going to be coming ashore here, and we expect that throughout our rest of our countdown. But we also are getting forecasts that there'll be some clearing as we get closer to our launch window. Big wave from Reed Wiseman there, and a thumbs up as the crew goes into the elevator to ascend the launch tower to go up to the level where they'll walk across the crew access arm and get into the white room. One of the things that you're going to start to hear now is from the crew themselves. We're going to be airing the Orion to Earth loop, which is the communications that's going between that crew and the launch team here as they walk them through configuring their various consoles as well as getting ready. A nice moment here, and I'll just pause to just look and see as the crew walks across the zero deck, as they call it, which is the deck that's right there even with the engines, and they're taking a moment to go over there and stand up and gaze up at the 322-foot tall SLS rocket. This was part of the plan for the Artemis II crew, and potentially a rocket that could help them make history to go farther from Earth than any crew has before. The farthest distance from Earth when they launch will be roughly around 248,000 statute miles. They're expected to go about 4,000 miles farther than the Apollo 13 crew did. And now they've headed to the elevator to go up. Again, I was talking about the loops. You're going to be hearing from the crew as they discuss with the launch team getting various systems ready to go. And then closer to liftoff, we'll hear the operational launch team loop brought forward ahead of the critical pre-launch polls and then the start of terminal count. And that should be right around L-25 minutes, right before the NASA test director gives their poll and the launch director gives her management poll, which happens at L-17 minutes. Right now, a lot of focus is on, of course, the closeout crew. They've made the way for the crew to get inside the spacecraft now and walk across that crew access arm, and there they are. They have been working on a tight timeline, but they are ready to go, and they are ready to receive the crew and start putting them inside their Integrity spacecraft. That's it from the firing room. We'll send it back to Megan and Nicole.
And Launch Director Charlie Blackwell Thompson, again, we mentioned her a second ago. Her team have been training extensively for this moment since Artemis I launched in November 2022. Today, they have a message for Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy.
Today, you carry the work of thousands.